They still whisper about what happened at our high school, 5 years later. I wish my high school incident story was something I could laugh about, but what happened at mine still doesn't sit right. It's been over 10 years since I graduated high school, and I still think about her, Natalie Harper. I don't even know if she's alive anymore. That sounds dramatic, I know, but if you were there, if you saw what we saw, you'd get it. I'm not the kind of person to write these posts, but a friend of mine, someone else who went to our school, messaged me a few weeks ago out of nowhere, just sent me a picture, one I hadn't seen in years. Us in the courtyard, me, a couple friends, and Natalie, sitting under that big willow tree with her sketchbook. I don't know why, but seeing that picture, it unlocked something. Stuff I hadn't thought about in a long time. Things I tried to bury. So yeah, maybe writing this out will help. Our school was nothing special on the surface. A mid-sized public high school tucked in a sleepy, tree-lined town that always felt like it was stuck somewhere between 1984 and 2005. The kind of place where everybody knows everybody, and news spreads before the morning bell even rings. It wasn't bad exactly, just dull, predictable, until the year Mr. Langley showed up. But before him, there was Natalie. She was different, but not in a cliché way. She wasn't the goth girl hiding in corners, or the overly artsy girl wearing capes and quoting Kafka. She was just smart, like really smart. One of those people who could answer every question before the teacher even finished asking it, but still somehow wasn't annoying about it. Reserved, polite. You could tell her brain worked differently, quicker, sharper, but she never made a show of it. She wore these wireframe glasses that were always a little crooked, and her long dark hair usually fell in front of her face when she was reading or sketching, which was basically always. She didn't talk much, but when she did, it was the kind of thing that made you stop and think for a minute after, not because it was deep, but because it was just right. I used to talk to her a bit during lunch, nothing major, just little things, about books, movies, music. She had this weird obsession with 1930s horror films, loved the atmosphere of them, she said, the feeling that something's wrong, but you can't put your finger on it. Looking back now, I wonder if that was a hint. Anyway, things were pretty normal that fall, until Mr. Langley arrived. He replaced our old literature teacher, Mrs. Carter, who'd retired mid-year. He was young, too young, probably. Early 30s, maybe? Clean-shaven, stylish in a low-key way, with this calm, almost eerie confidence. The kind of guy who never raised his voice, but still somehow had total control of the room. At first, everyone loved him. He brought in weird books that weren't even on the syllabus. Stuff like House of Leaves, The Secret History, The Book of Disquiet. He'd ask open-ended questions, let us argue in class, told us to think in the negative space between thoughts, whatever that meant. He treated us like adults, and when you're 16 and stuck in a town that feels like a sitcom rerun, that hits hard. But something about him rubbed me the wrong way from the start. It was subtle. Just these little things, like how he always paused for 1 second too long after asking a question, staring, not blinking, like he was waiting for something more than just an answer, or how he never seemed surprised by anything, like he knew how every conversation would end before it even started. And the way he looked at Natalie, it wasn't inappropriate, not exactly, not in the obvious way, but it was intense, focused. Like she was a puzzle he was desperate to solve. She didn't seem to mind at first. In fact, she seemed to like him, not romantically. More like she felt seen. Like he understood her in a way the rest of us couldn't. She stayed after class to talk to him, started taking out weird books from the library. Her sketches got darker, more abstract. I saw one once, a huge black sun with a screaming face at the center. Underneath it, written in pencil so faint I almost missed it, was the word, awaken. That's when things started getting off. Natalie stopped sitting with us at lunch. Her answers in class weren't just smart anymore. They were strange, metaphysical, like she was speaking in riddles. A few people laughed at her one day during English and she just stared at them, eyes glassy like she wasn't really seeing them at all. And then the notebook incident happened. Someone, we never found out who, stole her sketchbook and passed it around. It was full of these cryptic, disturbing drawings, like dreams you only half remember but still give you that pit-in-the-stomach feeling. One page showed a row of students with their mouths sewn shut, bleeding from their eyes. Another showed Mr. Langley, except he had no face, just a mirror where his head should be. She didn't come to school for a week after that. When she came back, she was quieter. Not in a sad way, in a calm way, too calm. And then the whispering started. I wish I was making this up, but I swear, sometimes when you were walking the hallways between periods, you'd hear something, not quite voices, just breath and sound, like someone speaking just out of earshot. Sometimes you'd think it was your name, or a warning, a threat, a secret. It wasn't just me. Other people mentioned it too, but only once, like they were embarrassed to admit it. That winter was the darkest I remember, not just emotionally, I mean literally. The power kept flickering in and out. The fire alarms went off randomly during class. More and more people started skipping school. There were rumors about Mr. Langley, about Natalie, about a circle of students meeting after hours in the library. And then one day, Natalie left a note on my locker. It was folded into a tiny square. No envelope, just taped there with one of those red detention warning slips from the office, like someone wanted it to blend in. It said, "There are some doors that don't open. They wake up. And when they do, they don't close again. Don't follow him. Don't look too long at the dark. He looks back." I didn't sleep that night, or the next one. I kept Natalie's note hidden inside my phone case. I couldn't explain why, but throwing it away felt wrong, like it would somehow make things worse. I didn't show it to anyone, partly because I didn't want to feed the already growing rumors about her, and partly because deep down I believed her. And that scared me. From that point on, things just got weirder. It wasn't one big dramatic event. It was a slow rot. Like the school itself was shifting. You know how some buildings feel warm, even in winter? Ours used to. But that December, the hallways felt cold in a different way, not temperature-wise, just empty. Office, the kind of cold that makes your skin crawl even when you're wearing a hoodie. People started changing, and I don't mean teenage drama, I mean actually changing. Samantha Dean, she was one of the brightest in our grade. Popular, driven, always leading some charity project or helping out with events. She suddenly dropped out of everything, stopped showing up to class. I saw her in the hallway one morning, just standing in front of her locker, staring into it, not moving, like she was waiting for something to crawl out. A week later, she transferred schools. Her parents claimed she was burnt out, but the way she looked at me that day, I don't know. Her eyes looked hollow, like she'd seen something she couldn't explain and decided never to speak of it again. Then there was Kevin. Total class clown, loud, obnoxious, always trying to get a laugh. He stopped talking completely, I mean completely, like full-on mute. Counselors thought it was a breakdown. But we heard him one day during math class, muttering something under his breath. It wasn't English. I don't think it was any language, just harsh, guttural syllables over and over again like a chant. One of the kids recorded it on their phone and played it back later, but the file was just static. Loud, painful static that made your ears feel like they were about to bleed. He got sent away for psych eval. Never came back. People joked that our school was cursed, that Mr. Langley had brought something with him, but no one really did anything. You know how it is. Everyone just kind of adjusted, like frogs in boiling water. I started noticing strange symbols drawn in chalk on the back of lockers, circles inside triangles, eyes with too many lashes. One day I opened my locker and found the inside completely covered in a sticky black residue. No note, no explanation, just that smell. metallic and rotten. When I told a teacher, they said someone probably dumped soda in there, except it wasn't wet, and it didn't dry. It just stayed there for weeks until I cleaned it out myself. And through all of it, Natalie kept drifting further and further away. She didn't sit in class anymore. She stood, usually in the back corner, just watching. Teachers didn't stop her. They barely acknowledged her. Mr. Langley, especially, treated her like some kind of assistant? Or maybe an equal. I don't know. He'd call on her more than anyone else, even when she hadn't raised her hand. One day in English, he asked her what she thought the true meaning of self was. And she said, "I swear to God, the self is just a keyhole through which something else watches." The room went completely silent. You could hear the HVAC humming above us. Nobody said anything for the rest of class. Nobody wanted to. Then came the blackout. Mid-January, just after lunch. The whole school lost power. Lights, phones, everything. Normally when that happens, they send us home. But this time they didn't. No announcements, no teachers in the hallway, nothing. We just sat there, in the dim light from the windows, waiting. After about 10 minutes, the emergency lights flickered on in the hallways, just enough to cast long, distorted shadows on the floors. I remember sitting in the back of history class, looking out through the open door and seeing something move across the hall. Not someone. Something. Too fast to be a student. Too tall. And it didn't walk. It glided. Other people saw it too. But when we talked about it later, no one could agree on what it looked like. Some said it had no face. Others said it had too many. But we all remembered the same thing. The sound. This low, wet clicking, like teeth chattering underwater. The blackout lasted exactly 13 minutes. When the lights came back on, the room felt wrong. The colors looked faded. The air smelled like burned plastic. And Natalie was gone. Not just from the room, from the school. They announced she was taking a leave of absence. No other details. No explanation. A few people cheered. Some pretended not to care. But I knew better. I knew something had happened during that blackout. Something big. Something no one wanted to admit. That weekend, I stayed up late researching weird phenomena. Sleep paralysis, mass hysteria, urban legends about cursed schools. Nothing fit. But then I found something. An old archived blog post from 2003, written by a student from a different state. His school had hired a substitute named Mr. Langley. Same teaching style, same weird books, same descent into paranoia and chaos. The post ended with, "He doesn't teach. He prepares. And once he finds the right one, he opens the gate." The blog was deleted the next day. When I returned to school Monday, there were new posters on the bulletin boards. Black backgrounds with white text. "There is no door that cannot be opened. All you need is the key." No one claimed responsibility. No teachers took them down. I tried to confront Mr. Langley. I waited after class and asked him flat out, "What happened to Natalie?" He didn't answer. Just looked at me, head tilted, with this small, knowing smile. Then he said, "You've looked too long, haven't you? You're starting to see the cracks." I remember that sentence word for word, burned into my brain. That night, I had my first nightmare. I was in the school, but everything was silent. No lights, no windows, just endless hallways twisting into each other like a maze. At the end of one corridor, I saw Natalie, or something that looked like her. But her eyes were completely black, like voids. She raised one hand and pointed behind me. When I turned, there was a door, old, wooden, covered in carvings, and as I watched, it started to open, not outward, but inward, like it was folding into itself, and behind it was not a room or a place, just darkness, endless, consuming darkness that felt alive. I woke up screaming, my nose was bleeding, and there was a symbol drawn on the inside of my bedroom window. in chalk. I lived on the third floor. After the nightmare, I stopped sleeping properly. Even when I did manage to doze off, I'd jolt awake after an hour or two, drenched in sweat, heart pounding, convinced someone had just whispered my name. My mom noticed. She thought it was stress, maybe seasonal depression. She took me to the doctor, got me melatonin, offered to let me stay home from school. But I kept going. I had to. Something inside me felt like it was unraveling, and the only place it seemed to be happening faster was inside those halls. The thing is, the school didn't look different on the surface. Classes still happened, bells still rang, people still wandered the hallways with backpacks slung over one shoulder. But beneath it all, there was something wrong, a kind of tension you could feel in your jaw, like the whole place was holding its breath. Whispers started circulating about the marked ones. That was the word people used, marked. Quietly, nervously, behind hands or in group chats that disappeared after 24 hours. No one could explain what it meant, just that certain students were changing. They'd show up to school looking off, paler, sweaty, like they hadn't slept in days. And their eyes started doing this twitchy, rapid movement thing, like they were scanning something just over your shoulder. And every time one of those kids changed, you could be damn sure that they spent time with Mr. Langley in the days leading up to it. Some of them had been model students, some had been outcasts. It didn't matter. Once you got too close to Langley, you were never really yourself again. Then came the day of the fire alarm. It was late February. Snow still crusted over the edges of the football field, and the sky had that permanent gray tone, like it was tired of pretending to be blue. The alarm went off right in the middle of second period. Everyone groaned, assuming it was just a drill. But when we got outside, it was clear something was wrong. There were no fire trucks, no teachers directing people. Half the school wasn't even outside. After about 10 minutes of standing in the cold, a rumor started circulating. Someone had pulled the alarm in Hall D, the oldest wing of the school, the wing that had been under renovations for the past few weeks, the wing that, supposedly, no one was allowed into. I say supposedly because about 20 of us, me, a few friends, a couple seniors, decided to sneak back inside. Don't ask me why. I wish I could say we were trying to help, or that it was brave. But honestly, we just wanted answers. We were sick of the lies, the silence, the weird grins from Langley and the chalk symbols and the dreams that wouldn't die. We snuck in through the side entrance near the gym. The doors were still open, but the hallway lights were off. Only the faint glow from the emergency exit signs lit the way. We made our way to Hall D. It felt like stepping into a different world. First thing I noticed? The smell. Heavy, sour, like mold mixed with old meat. Then the sound. A low, droning hum, almost too low to hear but deep enough to feel in your chest. And the walls. Jesus. The walls were wrong. They looked wet. Not dripping, just moist. Like they were sweating something black and slow. That's when we saw the classroom door. Room D17. It was wide open. Inside, the desks had all been pushed to the edges. In the center of the room, someone, or something, had drawn a massive symbol across the tile in what looked like old rust. Circles layered over triangles, eyes within eyes, a spiral that led to a jagged hole in the middle of the floor. And standing in front of it, back to us, was Natalie. She was whispering. Not to us, to it. I don't know how to describe it. At first I thought it was a shadow, but shadows don't shimmer. They don't pulse like lungs. And they don't stretch across floors and ceilings and look back at you when you stare too long. Natalie turned slowly, like she already knew we were there. And she smiled. But it wasn't her smile. It was too wide, too calm, like she was floating in some kind of dream, and everything around her made perfect sense. I told you, she said. It was never about school, it's about preparation. One of the seniors, Jake, I think, stepped forward and muttered, "What the hell is this?" Natalie just raised her hand, and the door slammed shut behind us. We all jumped. Someone screamed. I bolted to the door, grabbed the handle, burning hot, too hot. Natalie didn't flinch. She stepped closer to the symbol. "It's almost ready," she whispered. "We just need one more." She looked directly at me. My heart stopped. Before I could even process it, the hole in the middle of the symbol, that jagged spiral, began to ripple, like it was made of black oil. Something inside it moved. It wasn't fully visible, just flashes, a claw, an eye, a face that wasn't a face. Like every time you blinked, it looked different. But one thing was certain. It was alive. It was watching us. Then Langley stepped out of the corner. I swear to God, none of us had seen him. It was like he formed out of the shadows. "You weren't invited," he said softly. I don't remember what happened next in perfect order. It's all flashes, screams, people banging on the door, someone punching through a glass window, only to find brick on the other side. Langley walked calmly to Natalie, took her hand, and together they began chanting. Loud, fast, like a language made of pressure and teeth. The hole started glowing, and the thing inside it started rising. Jake tried to rush them, but as soon as he stepped into the symbol, he froze, like his whole body had turned to stone. His mouth opened like he was screaming, but no sound came out. Then he cracked, literally, like ceramic. Hairline fractures racing up his arms and neck, then shatter. He collapsed into dust. We ran. I don't remember how we got out. Somehow the door opened, or maybe it broke. Maybe it let us go. But we sprinted down the hallway, out the exit, and didn't stop until we hit the edge of the school's football field. Only 5 of us made it out. The rest? Nobody talks about them. It's like they never existed. No police came, no news reports. The next day, the hallway was sealed off. They claimed it was water damage, black mold, hazards. Mr. Langley? Gone. Family emergency, they said. Natalie? Never came back. And Jake? Vanished from all school records. His locker emptied. His name wiped from class lists. It was like the system was rewriting itself to remove him. No one believed our story. Or maybe they didn't want to believe it. But every once in a while, when I walk past the old hallway, still boarded up, I swear I hear something behind it. Something whispering. Something waiting. And sometimes, when I sleep, I see the door again. Old. Wooden. Covered in eyes. Still opening. Still hungry. It's been nearly 3 years since that day. Since the fire alarm. Since Langley. Since Jake. I still think about it all the time, and not just because of the nightmares. The school never reopened Hall D. The board claimed it was structurally unsound. They sent contractors in to assess the mold damage, and supposedly the entire wing was going to be demolished. Except it never was. The wing still stands. Same windows, same roof. Only now, there are no lights inside. No signs of activity. Just boarded doors and padlocks. The contractors? They stopped coming after 3 days. One of them never left. His truck sat in the parking lot overnight. By morning, the windows were smashed from the inside. The police came, taped the area off, said it was unauthorized access, some squatter or vandal, but we knew better. Me and the other 4 who escaped that day, we tried to move on, college applications, part-time jobs, pretending to be normal teenagers. But we weren't. Not really. It changed us. Nina started drawing again. She hadn't done that in years. But now her notebooks were filled with the symbol, the one from the floor, over and over, drawn in pencil, in ink, in blood-red Sharpie. Sometimes she wouldn't remember doing it. Aaron joined the military, said he needed to feel like he had control again. Taylor dropped out entirely. She moved in with her uncle in another state. Last I heard, she stopped speaking altogether. And me? I tried to forget. Threw myself into school, played the role, smiled, nodded, laughed at things that weren't funny. Did everything I could to pretend the shadows weren't still following me. But they were. And then came the anniversary, February 23rd. It started like any other day. Until halfway through 4th period, the intercom crackled to life. But no one was speaking. There was static, low and distorted. Then, a voice. Garbled, stretched like a cassette tape played at half speed, saying something I couldn't quite make out. But I felt it. Everyone in the room went quiet. Even the teacher stopped mid-sentence, tilting their head like they were trying to make sense of it. Then the lights flickered. Once, twice. Then darkness, total blackout. Phones stopped working. The windows? Pitch black, like the world outside had vanished. We heard screams echoing down the hallway, not distant ones, close. I stood up to check the door, but before I could get there, someone, or something, pounded against it from the other side. 3 slow, heavy thuds. Boom, boom, boom. The teacher told us to sit, to stay calm, that it was probably just a drill gone wrong, but drills don't make the walls bleed. I wish that was a metaphor. I really do. But I saw it. Thin, black rivulets leaking down from the corners of the ceiling, and where it touched the floor, the tiles sizzled. I backed away, heart thudding in my throat as the air started to buzz, like 1,000 wasps were crawling under my skin. Then the fire alarm went off. Not the modern one, not the electronic beep we were used to. This one was a bell, an old-school, clanging iron bell, and it was coming from inside the walls. I don't know how I got out of that classroom. I remember running. Doors that should have led to other rooms were gone, just blank walls. Hallways twisted in on themselves. Staircases led nowhere. It was like the entire school had been rewritten. And at the center of it all was the auditorium. I don't remember choosing to go there. My legs just moved. When I stepped inside, it was packed. Hundreds of students, all standing, silent, staring at the stage. Langley stood at the center, arms raised like a preacher mid-sermon. Behind him, the curtain was drawn back, revealing the same hole from Hall D, the spiral, the symbol. But this time, it was wider, deeper, hungrier. And Natalie was back. She stood beside him, holding something in her hands. A box, wooden, old, covered in carvings that seemed to shimmer if you looked too long. She opened it slowly. Inside was a book, not a normal one. It looked alive, bound in something that wasn't leather, pulsing, breathing. The pages flipped on their own, faster and faster, until the wind it created blew Langley's coat behind him, and then it stopped. He began reading. The words sounded wrong, like they didn't belong in this world. Every syllable made my stomach twist, like my body was trying to reject the sound. Students around me began to sway. Some collapsed. Others whispered in time with the words. And the hole started glowing. A red, throbbing light, like a heartbeat, and from within it, something started rising. This time I saw it, fully. It was tall, taller than the stage curtains. Its skin shimmered like oil in the sun, shifting between colors that shouldn't exist. It had too many eyes, too many mouths, and none of them were in the right place. It looked ancient, like it had been waiting forever, and it was finally awake. That's when the screaming started. Someone, I don't know who, tried to run. The thing reached out with a limb that wasn't quite an arm and pulled them into itself. Not devoured, absorbed, like they were never separate to begin with. More students ran. Chaos broke out. Langley just kept chanting, louder, faster, almost frantic. Natalie turned toward me, and her eyes, they were gone, just black, empty sockets. But I heard her voice in my head, clear as day. You were meant to join us. You saw the door. You opened it. You belong here. I ran. I don't know how. Don't know how I avoided the thing, the hole, the grasping limbs that pulled at reality itself. But I made it outside. The world was back. Sky was blue, people walking, birds chirping. The school behind me, silent, normal. I turned back once, just once, and the auditorium windows were gone. In their place, a mural, a painting of the graduating class. But the faces? They weren't ours. They weren't even human. The school burned down 3 days later. They said it was faulty wiring, an electrical fire that spread too fast. There were no survivors. Except me. Because I never went back. Because I knew what would happen. I've never told anyone this in full until now, but I had to. Because last week, I got a package in the mail, no return address. Inside was a small wooden box, old, covered in carvings. It's sitting on my desk right now. I haven't opened it. Not yet. But sometimes, late at night, I hear it breathing, and I think I can hear Langley whispering again. You were meant to join us. So, if this post disappears, if my account goes dark, you'll know why. Just promise me something. If you see a door covered in eyes, don't open it. Update, 6 months later. So, I wasn't planning to come back here. Honestly, I thought writing this all down would help me move on. Like if I put it into words, it would lose its grip on me. But it didn't. Since posting, things have only gotten weirder. The box, still unopened. I tried to throw it away once, drove it 30 miles out of town, found a landfill, buried it in the middle of a pile of junk under a bunch of rusted scrap. The next morning it was on my desk. Same spot. Same way I found it the first time. Only this time, it wasn't breathing. It was ticking, like a clock. I haven't slept much since then. Every time I close my eyes, I dream of the auditorium, of Langley, Natalie, the spiral. Sometimes I wake up in a cold sweat, thinking I'm still there, surrounded by those whispering, melting faces. But here's the part that really gets me. You remember the class photo I mentioned? The mural painted over the auditorium windows? Someone else posted a picture of it. Not from the past, not from memory, from yesterday. It's still there. The building burned down, yes, the rest of it did. But Hall D and the auditorium, still standing, blackened, charred, but untouched. And the photo? Clear as day. Except now, there's a new face in it. Mine. I never took that photo, never posed for it. But there I am, dead center, eyes wide, mouth open, like I'm screaming. But here's the worst part. I checked the photo again this morning, and my face is slowly turning, looking straight at me. I don't know what happens next. Maybe nothing. Maybe this post is the last thing I ever write. But if you're reading this, stay away from that school. And if you ever see a box with no seams carved in symbols that make your eyes water, leave it alone. Because some doors shouldn't be opened, and some stories shouldn't be remembered. But they remember you.